Well, let's get started. We've got about 30 minutes. I want to keep this pretty concise, short and sweet, with a lot of good quality info that you guys can take back to your clinics and apply. So the goal is for this to be practical information and useful information for you guys. So we'll jump on in with our agenda for today. So our goal is to go over the top 5 concerns for and deliver solutions for you guys when it comes to remote patient monitoring. We want to make it easy as possible. So briefly, here's our agenda. I'll tell you a little bit about who Proactive Wellness Care is. We'll talk about the RPM codes that are out there. We'll go over the 5 top concerns. These are concerns that I hear every day that I'm out there talking to new clinics and clinics that are interested in utilizing RPM. There's still early adopters out there. There's still a lot of room for adoption on this. So I'm excited about the future for remote patient monitoring. And then finally, I'll close out with a case study. Now, a couple of housekeeping items. If there's questions that you may have, please throw them on the chat. I will at the end make some. I left some room to go over the Q's and A's, and I'll answer those questions for you. Okay. So, kicking things off, who are we? Who is Proactive Wellness? First, I'll start with introducing myself. My name is Ralph Sanchez. I'm the Chief Business Development Officer for Proactive Wellness Care. Here at Proactive Wellness Care, we focus on helping our physicians, community physicians, independent physicians, primary care practice, your family practices, cardiologists, help manage patients in between visits that have chronic conditions. So we provide remote patient monitoring services and chronic care management services. Today, we're going to focus solely on remote patient monitoring program to help you guys implement it into your clinics. So first of all, myself, I've been a registered nurse for over 24 years. I've been in the remote patient monitoring space since 2011. I started off with a home health agency that used this to help manage their patients with chronic conditions coming out of the hospital. So they used this in a way to help with the ongoing care of their patients. And they use this as a tool to understand who needed the most attention and when and for what. Uh, as a result, this led to a large success rate with all-cause hospitalizations. So we were able to have a very low all-cause 30-day hospitalization rate, and it became just an amazing tool that I learned to use not just from the clinical perspective, but also from the business side of things. Um, so fast forward, I started utilizing remote patient monitoring with hospital systems, with ACOs, and now with community providers, PCPs, internal medicine providers, et cetera, like I had mentioned. So this tool is still relatively new, just from the sense of reimbursement. It's been around for a very long time, but because there was no reimbursement up until 2020, it just never really took off. So programs were a little disjointed, but folks like myself that have been around for a while now really know how to utilize this tool in multiple ways. So for those of you that are new to RPM and just kind of looking under the hood for the first time and want to know what is RPM all about, remote patient monitoring is a program that Medicare said, look, we want to do something about chronic conditions that tend to cause unnecessary hospitalizations. So they said, let's provide a tool, a service for our community providers to help these patients in between visits. So the goal is, let's manage these patients after they go see you in your clinic. Let's manage them at home, keep an eye on their trends, on their vitals, and provide intervention and coaching so that you can intervene and thus avoiding a hospitalization. So they rather them come back to your clinic more routinely than go visit an emergency room. As a result, the cost savings are exponential. They're massive. So there are 4 CPT codes associated with remote patient monitoring. The first one is the onboarding CPT code, which is a one-time, anytime that you refer a patient onto the program, reimburses about $20 one time. That covers the cost of maybe shipping the device, and the initial consult to educate the patient on how to utilize it, how to utilize the programs, and what to expect. The second CPT code covers the device and the software and the technology. Okay, that's an ongoing monthly CPT code, which reimburses the range of $50 to $55. The next two are time-based CPT codes. These are the monitoring minutes that nurses will have to do to manage and coach and triage the patients. The first one reimburses for the first 20 minutes of care, about $50 to $52. The second set, which is 99458, reimburses for any additional 20-minute increments at a rate of $40 to $42. Now, it all depends on your MAC in your area. So we'd have to consult your local MAC to identify where that reimbursement, to sharpen up that reimbursement, what it's going to be for you guys. So let's jump into the top 5 concerns. So this is kind of where I want to spend a little bit more time going over each one of them and giving you different scenarios. And again, all practical so that you can see, hey, how would this impact my clinic and how can I put it to work? So the first thing I always see is, do I have to invest in equipment that in staff? And will the patient's insurance cover this, or which insurance cover this? And the answers here are pretty straightforward. What you want to look for is a service provider, an RPM service provider like us. And there's hundreds of them out there. They all have different business models as well that have a turnkey solution and say, we can start a program tomorrow with zero capital investment on your end. Okay. To do programs like this, you want to look for a service provider that offers 3 components. The first is going to be hardware. The second is software. And the third is services. Hardware, software, services. Those are the 3 things you want to ask any service provider when you're dealing with, hey, I want to do RPM. Why? The first one is hardware. What type of devices are they using? Are they ready to go off the box? How do they connect to the second part, which is your software? And the third part is your clinical monitoring component. Believe it or not, some providers offer one, but not the other. So you want to make sure that whoever you're working with offers all 3 of these components, because if they do, it's going to be not only more economical for you, it's going to play an impact on some of our next concerns that I'll talk to you guys about here in a second. The second question, as it pertains to this, is what insurance cover this? Look, CMS has the CPT codes, traditional Medicare, all Medicare Advantage plans, and even commercial payers. There are some plans that do not cover it. I'm not going to go into those right today. If you want more info on that, I'm going to share my email and number at the end. You're more than welcome to call me and we can go over and I can outline those for you. Again, it depends on the area, and I'll be happy to share that information on a call. So I mentioned those 3 things: hardware, software, services, and how they interact with how the impact they will have with the program. It all comes down to workflow integration. So that's the second area of concern is I don't have the staff to do this extra work. My team is too busy right now to do this work. What can we do? Now, I mentioned you want that turnkey service provider, because if you've got specific workflow integration needs, you want to have someone that can easily pull levers and have the team within their ecosystem to make adjustments to the platform and make adjustments to the platform that are going to then talk to your system. So fortunately, we have a very strong IT team here at Proactive Wellness that is able to make adjustments, anything from adjustments that you see on our software that are going to be impactful to your organization. We're going to make adjustments to things like our billing programs or our billing reports so that it makes it smooth billing process for your claims to get processed. Without that, it makes it very boxy and difficult for any service provider to easily work and integrate to your workflow. Bottom line, if you're looking to bring in an RPM service provider, you want them to adjust to your workflow, not the other way around. Second thing is my team is too busy for this work. I just, there's no reason why any of you guys on this call that are running a clinic right now should not really, and you've been thinking about running an RPM program, be able to start tomorrow. I hear all sorts of reasons why, and some are valid. Don't get me wrong, but the whole premise of, gosh, that's just going to be very difficult. It's not as difficult as you would think if you're partnered with, if you have the right solutions in place. So with that, I want to address some of the pros and cons, because sometimes I meet with providers that say, hey, I do have a set of MAs that I could probably assign this to, and maybe they can do it on a part-time basis, maybe on the afternoons or Mondays, Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays, etc. Well, there's pros and cons associated with that. The pros is, yes, they're your staff and you have more control over them. The other thing is, you're already paying them, right? So maybe your margins are going to be higher when you launch a program like this. Absolutely. But the cons are when that person, those MAs have other responsibilities within your clinic, it makes it very difficult for them to stay focused and stay the course and continue with the program and addressing the program needs to make it successful. What I wind up seeing when they go their own route and doing this internally is the lack of growth. And when you've got a program that has 10, 20 patients, it's helping that small set of patients, but not really helping your entire patient population. So you want to be able to open it up for everybody. And that's going to make an impact in multiple ways, and I'll address a few of those here in the next couple of slides. But when you do it internally, when you monitor the patients internally, the other piece that becomes very challenging for the staff is, how do I engage them, right? So I met with Mrs. Greenberg. She came in today for an office visit. I gave her a device. She left, but you come to see that she only takes a reading every third or fourth day, maybe once a week. It's not enough, and as a result, you can't file a claim for it. You don't want that either, right? So what do we do? How do we handle that? It boils back down to the personnel not following a program. And you want to be able to have a program in place that's going to give value back to those patients. Value in the sense of having that quality conversation with them about their health and their health status and their understanding of their condition. Value in the sense of an extra easier access, quick access to a nurse. We'll be able to show them, send them educational PDFs, videos, etc., that they can follow along. So when we coach someone for the first time, we'll onboard them. We'll educate them on their condition. The following week, we'll tell them that we're going to work on next their medications and kind of understanding their medications. And then the following week after that, maybe talk specifics about nutrition and dash diet, for instance. All of this is a buildup, right? And all of this is following our provider's plan of care. Super important that we acknowledge that and we don't deviate from that. So when it comes to using your staff, that quality and consistency may not be there, just from the perspective that they've got a bunch of other things going on. So number 3, a little bit in parallel from what I just talked about, with staff training and support. My team is too small. I don't have the staff to manage this. I commonly hear. I also hear I don't have the time to manage everyone's vitals. That's like the number one concern from providers. Like, whoa, that means that I'm going to get a lot of vital signs for me to manage. And they're scared about that. They don't want that. So not only do we need to have our, if they're going to run it by their own staff to do that, they need to educate them on how to triage these patients. But more importantly, if you're outsourcing this to a turnkey solution service provider like us, you want to make sure that the program is RPM specific, right? So if you're doing it internally, Susie, the MA, will probably have other responsibilities. Doing this part time, a lot can fall through the cracks. Service provider like us, this is what we do. Every single day, we're focused on engaging the patients. We're focused on looking at trends and elevations. We're focused on there's alerts, there's critical alerts, let's address them. Sometimes there are false positives, so we need to evaluate that. We evaluate the need for a visit back to the doctor's office sooner rather than later. So it's important that you identify that the team and the team's dedication very, very early on. Second, onboarding patients, another big consideration, right? Who's going to onboard the patients routinely when you see them at your office? Is it an MA? Is it the provider giving them the box right then and there? We'll come with several options, with maybe 2 or 3 options that are going to fit your workflow. Third, device management. So now you've got devices out there in the ether, all throughout the community. You know, make sure that they're plugged in to the wireless, you know, cellular towers routinely. We need to make sure that the batteries are charged. They're not running out of juice. If they are, we need to send them new batteries. If they discharge, we need to collect those devices. The last thing you want is that added responsibility on your staff member. So that's where service providers like us come in. We'll be able to take that off your hands so that you can work on the patients that are there in front of you in your office at that point, and we'll work on everybody else in the community. And then fourth is the ongoing monitoring, right? I've hit on this throughout. We want to make sure that that we keep them engaged. If they're not engaged, we are not going to be able to reimburse at all. And as a result, the program starts to die on the vine. So the fourth concern is patient selection and engagement, right? How do I select which patients to enroll, and how do I keep them engaged, right? So I addressed the second part a little bit in that last slide, but just to dive in a little bit deeper, the engagement part is important because you got to provide, as I mentioned, a lot of value ongoing to these patients. They want that access to care. That's great. We can both do that, but that routine triage, that routine coaching, that routine check-in, right? That are going to make them feel comfortable, A, and B, take their vital signs routinely. That's what this all comes down to, right? Because the rules are such that for hypertension control program, for example, we give them a device. We need to have that patient take their blood pressure readings 16 days, not times, days within a 30-day period. If they fail that, if they do not do that, they're not engaged, and thus we can file a claim for that. Okay. So important that we are able to have a program that helps them feel like I'm contributing and I'm involved with my care. To answer the first question, how do I select which patients to enroll with the RPM program? We want patients that have at least one chronic condition. Hypertension control is by far the most popular. Diabetes management, CHF, obesity, all to name a few, right? And all of these have a device associated with them that that we would apply to the patient and gather routine data day in, day out. Number 5 is technical concerns. Like these are common items that I get all the time, like, you know, how secure the data is for my patients, and how do I ensure that the data is private and secure. Look, you need to ask your service provider that they're following all HIPAA compliance standards, and that there's proper security standards in place to manage the stored data. Second, look out for the type of devices the service providers utilize. So there's two main types. Number one is going to be Bluetooth enabled devices. Think maybe like your Fitbit watch. It connects to your phone's app, and then from the phone app that sends us the data, right? The friction lies in that in between, right? So if I've got my blood pressure or glucometer tied to my phone and it disconnects, or if my Wi-Fi is spotty, whatever reason, I may not get that data. So there's a lot of friction with that. So our recommendation is always utilize cellular-based devices. They're plug and play. They turn it on. It connects to the local cellular tower, and then from there we get that data. When they take their reading, it is encrypted when it travels to our system. Once it lands into our system, it appears as the number. So now it ties in my system. It's going to tell me who the patient is and their location and their results. So now I'm able to act on that data with that patient accordingly, all in a secure fashion. So we're doing it pretty good on time. I want to remind you that, if you've got questions, I'll address them here shortly. So send them in through the chat, and then I'll answer them here. So I want to present a case study on one of our local clients here in the Metroplex. That large organization, 4 different practice clinics. They focus on internal medicine, so they're very busy. They wanted to use our PM to manage patients with hypertension and also drive a little bit of additional revenue. The problem is they lack the budget to establish a new program internally. They're used to kind of doing everything internally on their own, and their staff was too busy to really kind of focus on those daily responsibilities, and they felt that it was cost prohibitive for them to start this internally. So I consulted with them. I wanted to understand their goals. Why did they want to do this? Do they belong to an ACO? What are some of the patient needs that they frequently see? And who are the payers typically that they deal with? So laying all that out, we established a program, an action plan for them. We provided a embedded staff, an account manager. We call them patient care associates that are going to be there on site to help with patient onboarding and be a resource to their staff. And as a result, we started to see some success and a lot of progress. Within 7 months, they grew to over 300 patients. They've had 0 diagnosis-related ED visits. So diagnosis-related ED visits, okay, I want to make sure I stress that. And throughout, patients overall expressed program satisfaction, right? We weren't being a nuisance. They were answering our calls. They were actively engaged. And we've had good quality success and conversations associated with the program overall. Overall, the providers, keep in mind, this group is a good sized group with over 8 physicians and another 8 to 10 different nurse practitioners and PAs. So a large number of providers that we have to work with and ensure that they're feeling like they're getting quality program and service. Their initial concern was, just as I mentioned, I'm going to get blitzed with a lot of vital signs, with a lot of phone calls. There was hesitation with that. And what they started to recognize overall is that patients' accountability started growing, right? When they left their office and we followed up, we helped reinforce their plan of care. We helped reinforce their education that they had provided with them. And we were that added ear to listen. And at times, we were there to provide action for them so that they do not have to go to the hospital, that they can go back to that clinic and make those timely visits instead of going to the ED. So overall, we started seeing a improvement in their HEDIS scores. So we also keep an eye on that for all our accounts. So we want to see those that are how their HEDIS metrics are doing, and how many do we have on the program, how many are within HEDIS, and how many are outside of HEDIS. This allows us to target those patients and work with them throughout the year so that we get them under HEDIS. So at the end of the year, companies like this internal medicine group that's part of an ACO can have an added bonus to this. The last piece is they saw additional revenue in the realm of 17 to 20K a month additionally. Now, on one hand, you can argue, oh man, that increased the cost of the cost of providing the service, right? The cost of care has been increased. Yes, but it's a drop in the bucket compared to all the ED visits. So keep that into perspective, okay? And ACOs out there are starting to recognize that. So I'll start to summarize here my takeaways. I hope that you walk away today with practical information to help stand up a program of your own and apply these learnings. Look, if you have any questions that you think of after the fact, here's my contact information. I'm available to you guys. My phone number's there at the bottom. My email is rob@prowellcare.com. Happy to hop on a call with you guys, understand your needs, understand your goals, and put an action plan together for you guys. I'll have this video recording for those of you that might have joined a little late. I'll have it sent out to your emails, and we look forward to keeping in touch with everybody. Again, thanks from on behalf of all my team at Proactive Wellness. Thank you. We'll see you again in the near future with another webinar. We do have some other webinars planned for later in the year. We'll talk about the new 2025 rules coming up as well. So it's going to open up not only for RPM, but also CCM. So we're excited to bring that as well for you guys. So until then, we'll be seeing you. Thank you.